Monday briefing. Israel orders more evacuations. Israel increases evacuations as clashes with Hezbollah escalate as conflict intensified on Israel's border with Lebanon. Israeli authorities said they were expanding a state-funded evacuation plan to an additional 14 villages. Along with a rare airstrike on the West Bank, the fighting raised fears that the war could expand. Israel's military said that attacks from Hezbollah, the Iran-backed militia that controls southern Lebanon, had resulted in civilian and military casualties. Amid concerns that the conflict could spill over, the Pentagon said on Saturday that it was sending an anti-missile battery and battalions of the Patriot ground-based air defense system to the Middle East. Israeli forces massed along the border with Gaza yesterday ahead of an expected ground invasion of the enclave. Israel's military efforts to eradicate Hamas may take a month, 2 or 3, but in the end, Hamas will no longer exist, the country's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, said yesterday. Violence also has been surging across the Israeli-occupied West Bank, where Israel carried out an airstrike against what it described as an underground terror compound beneath a mosque in the city of Jenin. The claims had not been independently verified. 2 people were killed, according to Palestinian health officials. Gaza Aid, humanitarian groups and the UN continue to warn that the first shipment of aid that arrived in Gaza on Saturday, 20 trucks carrying food, water and medicine, was just a fraction of what was needed. Another 14 aid trucks entered Gaza last night. The toll. Israel's bombardment continued, almost unabated, while Palestinian armed groups continued with their indiscriminate rocket firing, the UN said. The death toll in Gaza has reached at least 4,385, and there are more than 13,500 injuries, according to the Hamas-run Ministry of Health. In Israel, no new fatalities were reported. But injuries had increased to almost 5,000, the UN said. A warning. The Israeli military warned that residents of northern Gaza who did not flee to the southern part of the enclave may be considered a partner in a terrorist organization. But many people there said that leaving was not an option because of the cost and that it would not guarantee safety. We can't even afford to eat, Amani Abu Oda said. We don't have the money to leave. An Australian mogul may testify against Trump. Anthony Pratt, one of Australia's wealthiest men, made his way into Donald Trump's inner circle with money and flattery. In covert recordings, Pratt described Trump's business practices as being like the mafia. Their interactions were ultimately swept up in one of the 2 federal criminal cases against Trump, in which the former U.S. president is charged with taking classified documents from the White House when he left office. Pratt could testify against Trump at a trial next year. In his interviews with prosecutors, Pratt recounted how Trump once revealed to him sensitive information about U.S. nuclear submarines, including the number of warheads they travel with in their stealthy proximity to Russian waters, an episode that Trump denies. Time equals 400 ms, greater than Indigenous Australians say. Reconciliation is dead. Australia's rejection last week of the Indigenous Voice to Parliament, a proposed advisory body, is likely to lead to an irreversible shift in the nation's relationship with its First Peoples. Time equals 400 ms, greater than. Many Indigenous people perceived it as a denial of their past and their place in Australia, which is far behind other colonized nations in reconciling with its first inhabitants. The defeat of the Voice could not only derail any further reconciliation, but could also unleash a much more confrontational approach to Indigenous rights and race relations in Australia. Time equals 400 ms, greater than. The latest news. Asia Pacific. 2 months after Lahaina was destroyed by wildfires, Maui is fully open to tourism, but the path to recovery is uncertain. Australia said that China was poised to lift its punishing wine tariffs, a potential thaw in the relationship between the countries. Foxconn is said to be under tax audit in China, part of a regulatory push as local governments seek revenue. The U.S. is taking unusual action to clamp down on sales of the multi-million-dollar chip-making machinery at the center of its rivalry with China. Around the world, a $96 million Hindu temple, believed to be the largest in the Western Hemisphere, opened in New Jersey amid accusations of forced labor. Here's how $17.20 million in gold bars and cash disappeared from Toronto's airport. In a glimpse into Spain's future, 23 villages have been getting their drinking water from trucks since a reservoir dried up. A man posed as a mannequin in a storefront window in Warsaw in order to steal jewelry. Time equals 400 ms, greater than. Other big stories. China, Russia and the US are rushing to develop quantum computers, and to protect their security secrets from the technology. 5 women accusing the Canadian fashion mogul Peter Nygard of sexual assault testified that he lured them to a sordid, hidden bedroom in his office. This is why olive oil is so expensive now. A morning read. The Chinese video game Honkai Star Rail combines a taste of the Qing dynasty with the digital age, like holographic bonsai and star skiffs inspired by the 3rd century poet Zhang Hua. The game borrows from the emerging literary subgenre of silk punk, created by Ken Liu, author of the Dandelion Dynasty series and translator of The Three-Body Problem, which Liu said imagined modern worlds founded upon East Asian traditions and mythology. Time equals 400 ms, greater than arts and IDEASTO take control. She had to run. Azreen Parveen was just 16, but her family had already arranged an engagement for her. The bruises that covered her body, inflicted by her future-in-laws while she worked for them, she said, were evidence that a future of violence and pain lay before her. So she went out onto the ledge of a high window in her mother's house in her village in West Bengal. Standing on the edge, she saw something that changed her mind. Instead of jumping to her death, she decided to run for her life. This is part 1 in the series India's Daughters, about one of the deepest fault lines in India's politics and society, the conflict over young women's futures as they reach for the new opportunities offered by a rapidly changing country. Recommendations: bake this focaccia. It's probably the quickest yeasted bread you can make. Time equals 400 ms, greater than give it away. A meditation on the value of a buy nothing life. Read the authorized biography of Tupac Shakur. Take a break with Ali Stroker's 10 tips for sleep-deprived working moms. Play Spelling Bee, the mini crossword, Wordle and Sudoku. Find all our games here. That's it for today's briefing. See you tomorrow. Justin P.S. Sign up for our Israel-Hamas war briefing. We welcome your feedback. Send us your suggestions at briefing@nytimes.com.